And when we can put it into a single barrel offering at cask strength, like this is what we've tried, like I guarantee you, you're going to love this because we're not going to put it, I just sound like a Men's Warehouse commercial, but it just,
you're going to love the way you look.
This is episode 255 of Bourbon Pursuit. I'm one of your hosts, Kenny, and I hope you have had an enjoyable week and this podcast finds you well. So let's get on to some bourbon news. We missed the deadline for putting this in the podcast last week, so unless you've been staying away from social media, then you probably already know about the new Weller Single Barrel Orange label that will be coming to market soon. The new Weller will be bottled at 97 proof, which is a middle point between the traditional Green Label Special Reserve at 90 and the Red Label Antique at 107. It will also have a suggested retail price of $50. Plus, you can also check out Fred Minnick's YouTube channel, where he was the first person to review it. So make sure you go subscribe and check that out. There's also a new whiskey coming to market. It's a Tennessee whiskey, and it combines Golf, Marion Eves, and the Mannings. It's Sweetens Cove. The investors behind it have some major name power, including the likes of course, Peyton Manning, tennis legend Andy Roddick, sportscaster Jim Nantz, singer-songwriter Drew Holcomb, among others. The story behind Sweetens Cove is that it started somewhat off of like an off-the-grid 9-hole golf course at the end of a gravel road in Tennessee, and it was described by some because of its breathtaking views as golf's field of dreams. So a group of friends, including some of the previously ones mentioned, bought Sweetens Cove back in 2019. With no clubhouse, no plumbing, or really anything else to offer, it has a tradition of a celebratory shot of whiskey for first-timers on the first tee. This will be a 13-year-old Tennessee bourbon with multiple batches that have been blended by Marion Eves. It will consist of around 14,000 bottles and have an SRP of around $200. In distillery news, the governor of Kentucky has said that distilleries can reopen for visitors starting on June 8th. But please make sure that you put in your phone calls to any distilleries that you plan on visiting because it's up to their discretion on how they're going to reopen. So please make sure that you do that before making any plans to go to visit any. Now for today's podcast, many folks have asked us before, what does it take to actually start a bourbon brand? And today, you get to hear our story. We switch things up a little bit, and Fred interviews us on the brand, how we got started, our process for selecting barrels for Pursuit Series, and what our future plans entail. We can't say thank you enough to everyone out there who has purchased a bottle of Pursuit Series and been a steward of the brand. Because of you, we're able to help continue and grow this into something even more amazing down the line. We've even got more plans to release something awesome in the fourth quarter of this year, so stay tuned for more details. We've got 3 barrels that are available today on sealbox.com, along with less than 65 bottles remaining across specs in the Dallas and Texas and Fort Worth and Austin area, so make sure you can go and get all the details on pursuitspirits.com because we have 1 barrel that is in the Texas market. And if you got a friend or a relative that found bourbon as something that they enjoy while in quarantine, make sure you tell them about the podcast. Help spread the good word of bourbon. And Joe from Barrel Bourbon wants you to know that it's gotten a whole lot easier to get their unique cask strength whiskeys from around the world, including their rums, malt, and many others. Just visit barrelbourbon.com and click the Buy Now button today. You can get bourbon to your door. All right, enjoy today's episode. Here's Fred Minnick with Above the Char.
I'm Fred Minnick, and this is Above the Char. Ooh, it's becoming a little warmer. It's coming summertime. I'm seeing the blooms, the flowers. Oh, the sun's out more, and maybe you can get a little bit of tan. I'm grilling every night. It's just, it's so exciting. I can't wait to hang out. Oh, wait. Yeah, there's that whole damn pandemic thing. Man, but you know what? The other thing that summertime does for me? Rum cocktails, rum punches. I'm constantly experimenting with different rums. Listen, I know bourbon. We talk about bourbon all the time. This is Bourbon Pursuit. But rum is my, it's my second love in all the spirits. I love rum so much. And I It does so much with fruit. So listen, everybody, I'm just telling you right now, get on the rum kick this summer and let's start making some rum punches together. Go to the liquor store or get online at Drizzly or go wherever it is you shop right now in the middle of this pandemic and look for the different rums. Okay, here's a shopping list for you. These are the rums that I'm telling you right now will make you excited as a bourbon fan. Total Wine has a brand that's called Dorley's. Dorley's is made only for Total Wine in the United States. It's made by Foursquare, which in my opinion is the best distillery in all of rum. It's in Barbados, and that rum, Dorley's, whether it's the 12-year-old or it's the basic one, it is beautiful. Start out making cocktails with that or drink it neat. Go over to Jamaica, get a little Appleton, get a little bit of that Jamaican funk on up in there, and use that for punches. So get you some orange juice, get some limes and lemons, and just squeeze them all in together and throw in some sugar and maybe like a Luxardo. Stir that thing up and you got yourself a punch. Head on over to America and get a little bit of Privateer out of Boston, the Boston area. That Privateer is absolutely fantastic. Now, the three thing that all three of these rums have in common, they don't add sugar. That's right. A lot of rums actually add sugar after they have dumped it. So they'll add up to like 50 milligrams per liter in sugar. Now, a lot of people like that. But hey, I'm a straight bourbon guy. I love my bourbon neat. I love it with just a piece of ice sometimes. And if you are like me, then you're probably going to want something that isn't adulterated with a sweetness. And so Privateer, Appleton, and Foursquare, or Dorley's, made by Foursquare. Take a look at those three things and get back to me at Fred Minnick on whichever social media platform you like. And for a moment, let's talk some rum because it's summertime. And that's this week's Above the Char. Hey, if you have an idea for Above the Char, hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. And oh, by the way, I got a YouTube channel. Go check it out. We have a membership area where there's a lot of exclusive content. Until next week, cheers. Welcome back to Bourbon Pursuit. This is going to be a fun episode in which we discuss the Pursuit series, something that I am not a part of, but Kenny and Ryan of Bourbon Pursuit are. So I get to turn the tables on them a little bit and ask them some questions about how they got where they are. And I kind of want to start this off, gentlemen.
Oh no, I'm sweating.
Mm-hmm. Here come the bolts are coming.
Given what you told me off air, you should be.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, hit me up on social media, and I'll tell you what this is really about later.
We'll feed you all the dirty secrets, and that's fine.
Oh yeah, we got nothing to hide.
So,
well, except the party stories.
This episode is about the Pursuit series and the building of it. But of course, you cannot talk about the whiskey that you all own together without talking about this podcast. So, I want to go from the very beginning. How did you two actually meet?
You want to? Yeah, you take it. Oh, it's like we're awkward school.
You talk.
People.
I talk. So I had been listening to podcasts with my current business, my real paying business. I listened to podcasts. I'm in my truck a lot, and at the time, I was going to start a lawn care business. Well, I quickly learned that there's not going to be many listeners or followers.
Lawn care podcast.
I don't think we'd have a Patreon community. Donate. I'll send you some fertilizer or something. I don't know, but. Anywho, I was really into bourbon, and my brother-in-law kind of said, why don't you do a podcast about bourbon? And because you know so many people, you're from Bardstown, as I always say. And so I was like, yeah, that'd be cool, but I didn't know how to execute it. Kenny and I had become friends.
How'd you guys become friends? Where was that moment of where you all became friends?
I think we were in Target, and we were walking past the Pop-Tart aisle, and we locked eyes, and
I don't remember that.
No, it wasn't that. No, our wives were mutual friends.
Kenny, is that how you wanted the meeting to go? Or
I mean, you ever look back and you think like, oh, I wish I could do something over. That might be one of those times, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so our wives were mutual friends, and okay. I had a derby party every year, and Kenny would come and bring his mint julep mix and bring several different bottles, and so we kind of started, and he actually liked electronic dance music, and I did too. And so we kind of had similar interest. And so I knew what he did and his job was a lot of tech and presentations, public speaking, which I had no experience in. Still to this day, I kind of dread getting in front of microphone people, but so I needed somebody to execute. So I called Kenny, or I emailed him and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." But he was like, "We need to come from this angle." And so we met in my basement for the first one, and we had a laptop and a USB microphone, and we just kind of sat around and talked about bourbon and whatnot, and while we were doing this. And then I think we recorded it, and then we listened to it, and we're like, we got to delete that. That's terrible.
Let's start over. This was bad.
And then
Really?
And then
Do you guys still have that recording?
I don't know. Gosh, I might actually on my old
I would love to.
my old Mac. Actually,
we should
I bet
put that
I
out
do,
for like a
on my
bonus.
GarageBand. I need to look that up. That would be cool.
That'd be a
to
fun
see.
fun episode to do.
It's just one of those things where, when you start anything, you fumble your way through it.
Yeah.
And we've both gotten much better at the podcast execution, interviewing style, everything throughout the years.
Yeah.
It's just been a repetition, and you just, you start working at something, and you get better at it as the years go along.
Yeah, it's kind of a testament to like the old theory that like, the 10,000 hour rule or something like that. If you want to do something, like just because you suck at it first, like you can become good at it. You just got to do it. So don't let like perfection stop you from doing something, because we've had a lot of imperfections along the way, and it's taken us a long journey to get here, but it's been a cool journey nonetheless.
And when did it start getting serious for you in the podcasting space?
I would say, I'll kind of take that one a little bit. For us, it was one of those things where, Ryan he's a very good idea person. He's very driven by it, and he's very creative when it comes to it. And then it comes to the execution stage and making sure that it stays consistent and it stays on schedule and it stays like that. And so there was kind of like a turning within the responsibilities where, he really wanted to run with this and go with it. And I said, sure, like I've got my own work stuff going on. Like I'm okay. Like I'll kind of just be the extra voice of reason if you need it. And he was taking care of all the editing and stuff like that. And then, it got to the point where, I kind of took over a little bit of the editing, making sure that we had, the right kind of sound quality and all this other kind of stuff over the years. And there was a point as well where, during that process, when I was picking up and doing a lot of this and putting in tons and tons of hours a week into it. I mean, most of the people don't understand that what goes into a 1 hour podcast, there's at least 20 to 40, even sometimes 60 hours of work that just goes into that 1 hour.
Correct.
And so when you get to that point and you're spending that much time, plus you've got your other 40-hour a week day job, you get burnout pretty quickly. And so it got to the point where I just said, we're going to let it lapse a little bit, and we let it lapse. And then all of a sudden you had people on Twitter saying like, hey guys, when's the new episode going to come out?
Yeah. And we're like, oh, people listen?
Yeah.
What year was that?
This was probably 2016 timeframe. It had been somewhere during that time frame. And then there was also, I think it was like December of like 2016 as well. Actually, it's probably 2015 timeframe when that tweets happened. And then it was 2016 when it was a lot of the work that was really going into it. And I was feeling the burnout. I was really feeling the burnout from it. And I just said, like, I don't really know if the ROI's here. Like, I'll have to go ahead and reevaluate, like, is this really going to be worth the time? When I put that tweet out there, there was a lot of good positive responses. Mark Gillespie from Whiskey Cast saying like, hey, like I know a lot of stuff goes into it. Like he said, keep at it and stuff like that too. So even like competitors in the space were like saying, like a lot of just good, patting on the back and stuff like that. And then there was somebody else that said, hey, like, why don't you all start a Patreon? I'd be happy to support you. And I was like, what the hell is a Patreon? And so you go in, you start reading about it, and you're like, hell, let's run with it. And then from there, that's been kind of the growth and medium that we've needed to help support and sustain this podcast, because it's one of those things that, this is a new medium. It's hard to find advertisers in this new medium because there's a lot of companies that, Ryan said it before, it's like, it's whiskey, it's distillation. You haven't changed anything in 200 years. Probably not going to change a whole lot of things when it comes to the marketing aspect of it as well, right? So it's one of those things that we're waiting for them to kind of catch up with it. So it's, we go and we try to sell and we try to talk to these people, but, a lot of times that they'd rather buy a billboard or a bus stop, right? Whatever.
And good for you magazine ads.
Yes, and they love magazine ads still. That's just great. But I mean, like I said, this is just one of those things that we saw Patreon as really our catalyst to really support and grow the show. And that's really what it's been now for the past few years.
And it's awesome too, because we have a great partner with Barrel, but they've been great and, let us be us. But we don't have to answer, we can kind of be us. We're not on anyone's agenda or anything. So we can just be true to ourselves, and we do what the community wants. We really rely on them to kind of give us ideas and what interests them and feedback from them. It's been great having that support and, ideas bouncing off of them and stuff. So it's.
And I remember when you all reached out to me for an interview, there were a couple different times you all reached out to me. I helped you get into the Legend series, and then when you all reached out to me to be an interview about bourbon, I remember at the time there were so many podcasts coming on, and there were people trying to do stuff, and you guys kind of had a different feel, and it was like I could be friends with these guys,
Thanks for
even though I think that's one of the interviews was where the marzipan thing came from. It's like,
yeah.
You were like, what is
I was
marzipan?
like, what the hell's marzipan? I'd never heard of it in my life. I'm sorry. We never had marzipan in Bardstown.
But it was very clear early on that there was some spark there, and that you guys were going to do something in this space in a medium that I think was filled with people who really couldn't contribute to the community in some way. And you guys came out and you did it. And the one thing that, obviously I came on last year, or I guess a year and a half ago now, I came on because I respected what you guys built. And then when you all came out with your own bourbon, that threw me off. So I was like, I wasn't expecting that. I was like, that's the kind of move that you don't see media people make.
Yeah,
I remember us off too.
It threw us off too, because I remember we were kind of in negotiations of our partnership or whatnot, and the ironing out the details. And we were at an Old Forester event. I think it was the President's Choice or whatever. But we had just kind of confirmed that we were going to start this brand, and I was like, what is Fred going to think of this? Because he's a reviewer, is this going to throw the deal off? We set you aside and you're like, we need to talk about this. And it wasn't about the bourbon, but about our deal. And then we told you, we're like, we're starting our own bourbon brand. We don't want you to be involved. We know it will.
We don't want you to be involved.
Not in the sense that we don't want you involved, but we don't want to,
implicate
anything for your reviews and whatnot. So, and you were like, yeah, I don't care. It's totally fine. And I was like, oh, monkey off my back.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be a total deal breaker, but anyways.
Well, it's there have been some history there of whiskey media, starting a brand. Their Whiskey Magazine actually had its own label for a bit in Scotland, so it's not unprecedented. It's just not popular. People tend to frown upon it. Did you all have any concerns that you would piss off the distillers, that now you're competing with them? Did you have any concerns like that when you guys were thinking about this?
No,
not really. I mean, when we look at what we're trying to build and what we're trying to do, we're boutique. I mean, we are not going to be the kind of person that we're not going to have $2 or $20 million to dump into a distillery and build one. We're not going to be one of those people that are trying. I mean, it would be amazing to get bought out by somebody that's not on the radar. It's probably never going to happen because we're not that kind of level, right? We're not at a level where we're sourcing hundreds and hundreds of barrels and then creating these crazy single barrel programs and then aging stuff and then trying to release to mass market. That's really not what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And not only that is, we took this as an opportunity to kind of diverge it in two different ways. So first and foremost, yes, we source. That was the kind of the way that it was all built off of. But when we started this, even to how it all even began was the idea that, we talked about a brand on the podcast, and then a few weeks later I get this phone call from a guy and he's like, hey, I helped build that brand. Would you interested in doing your own? Never even crossed our mind, right?
At the time we just kind of started doing single barrels for the Patreon community. We had done it, and then they were selling out really fast. And so I was just thrilled doing single barrels from other distilleries. And I was totally content with that, at the time. And so our broker called us and he got the idea, and Kenny called me and he was like, you interested? And I was like, not really. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then like 2 weeks later passed, and Kenny's like, well, I'm going to meet that guy that has, all this. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll go. It's like Monday night. We're met at like Hell or High Water, and I'd never been there. I was like, oh, I'll go check it out.
Excuse to go get a cocktail.
Yeah. And so we sat with them, and they were, to our surprise, they were like, I thought they were going to be like two older guys, like, just kind of real sharp, like businessmen, like, kind of like, I don't know, just intimidated or something. But like we met them, they were really cool. They like had really great ideas. And the whiskey they had was really good. And I was like, you know what? I think we can make this work. And at the time, I think Kenny just thought, we were going to do like a barrel pick or two with it. And I was like, no, Kenny. We need to start our own brand, and like we could make something much more bigger than just 1 or 2 barrels from that. So I immediately left that meeting, and I could not sleep for like 2 nights. I was so excited about the opportunity. Like I told my wife, I came home and I'm like, this is something I've been dreaming of my whole life. This is an opportunity. Like
you'd always wanted to own a
well,
brand.
no, I never did, but like I've grown up around this my whole life, and I've always enjoyed bourbon, and I love being around the community, and just even the opportunity to have my own brand like was like just shocking to me, and like I was so excited about it. I couldn't even put into words. I just, that's all my attention went to for months. And so Kenny and I got on, I was like, I know a designer, let's call him, get a bottle design made up, let's go. And then the broker sent us some samples, to kind of pick our first barrel to see if we're still interested, and tell them about, what we did up here.
Yeah. I mean, we had 3 barrel samples, and we all kind of know that it was coming from Tennessee. We knew that. And that was one of the things that we thought ourselves. Like we go into it with the same exact mindset that every other whiskey geek goes out there, and they're like, I don't drink Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah,
right?
Me especially. I was like, no way.
We're from Louisville, Bardstown. Kentucky's in our blood. Like, why would we ever do this? And so I said, all right, you know what? Like, let's give it a try. I said, let's take these 3 barrel samples. I'll grab a bottle of Henry McKenna. And I said, if it's better than Henry McKenna.
This was right after you had like named it Whiskey of the Year or something. So weird.
And when I say better, like better to our palates
right
at that day, at that time, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so we sat outside, our barrel proof versions of it. And, we're just sitting there and we're drinking it. And lo and behold, like the first barrel that we liked, we loved it. We said, this is it. This is the winner. And that ended up being episode 001, the first barrel release that we ever did.
Yeah. So we went down there. I think the first one we went on, they rolled out like 10 barrels that time. And our intentions were to just buy 1 barrel. And, we get down there and we tasted through like, I don't know, 10 or 12. I can't remember exactly. And we found 3 that were like really good. And I was like, man, we got to buy 3 of them. And I'm freaking out. Like, how much is this going to cost? How do we ship them? How do we do all this? Like, there was like, all this anxiety. But I was excited because I knew the whiskey was good. And I thought that people would enjoy it if they would just, drop the stigma of Tennessee. But if they open up the bottle and try it, I was like, because we taste a lot of good stuff. I mean, not to say that we're gifted or our palates are better, but we're whiskey geeks like everyone else, and we've tasted pretty much anything and everything. And we thought that this was in that realm of really a high quality product. And so I was like, yes, I'll put my name on it, and let's get it to market.
How did you all get the money to start this? Did this come from your own financing?
Yeah, I mean, this was all completely bootstrapped by what we put into it and everything like that. We've got a pretty good deal that we cut out with our distributor, or not our distributor, I'm sorry, our broker, where our deal is basically says that and this is also kind of the way that we built this as well. Pursuit Series is nothing like anything else that you can get in the bulk market, because we've talked about the bulk market on the podcast before. You want to start a brand, you need 50 barrels. Here's your check for whatever, $80,000, $90,000, maybe even probably $250,000, whatever it is. If you trucks show up, your barrels roll off, you get what you get, right?
Mm-hmm. Some could be empty, some could be half full, some could be full, and some could taste like hell, some could, it's just, you don't know.
It's a huge gamble. And so what we get the opportunity to do is actually go to the broker, and depending on the day, 2,000 to 5,000 barrels in inventory, he'll roll out what he can for us, and we'll sample through, and we will select every single barrel we get to choose from the broker. So it's unlike everything else, where it's actually a true single barrel that we are choosing out of amongst a lot of these. And when we're looking at a lot of the Tennessee stock, we reject about 80% of the barrels that we go through, right? So we're looking for really the best of the best when we go through this.
Those guys that we work with, I won't name names because
you don't want to give them up.
Right. Well, no, I want to help him any way I can.
Absolutely.
Because he's been instrumental to our success, and we wouldn't be here without him. But yeah, I mean, from the initial meeting, he's like, I know, we have you two are not like typical people we sell to. You're going to buy a barrel here, a barrel there. That's not what we typically do. Typically, like Kenny said, they move 500 to 1,000 barrels at a time, and so. He was very creative in like how we could finance it, how we could make this work. He was very interested in making us succeed. And so that was one thing that, has really helped us, be able to cash flow this and kind of get it to where it is. Otherwise we put up a lot of money up front initially, but we were able to kind of recoup that pretty fast with the financing terms he's given us.
Yeah. And those financing terms, they may not last forever because like I said, we go and we select barrels now. Like now when we go and we select barrels, like I said, the first time we went, we had 12 or 14 to select from. Now when we go, it's anywhere between 30 to 60 barrels, and we do it over the span of 2 days, and we're slapping stickers left and right, and we're taking like, maybe 10 to 12 barrels when we do this.
And he does the bottling too?
Yes. Yeah. So that's the great thing, is it's kind of like a one-stop shop operation for us. They'll do bottling, they do labeling. So we're able to source our glass, source our tops, get our labels created from a local design agency that we have and everything like that, have them shipped down there. And
if you're a bourbon brand out there, you want some repackaging or want to start Relay Design, they are incredible.
Yep. Here in Louisville, Relay Design is the one who actually helped build our label and everything like that.
So I was curious, who came up with the idea of calling, first of all, the Pursuit series, that makes sense, but who came up with the idea to call each one of them an episode?
That was me.
Brilliant. Just a brilliant idea. I loved it.
Well, I was like, each barrel's, a single barrel, so they're all unique. And I was like, we were really trying to play off the podcast because, that's where we were successful. And so I was... And, most bourbon bottles, when we were doing the packaging and design, most bourbon bottles are really masculine and they're very like serious. They're dark. They're, really kind of like leather, manly kind of. And I wanted to brighten it up, kind of make it fresh and fun and playful. And our designer had the same kind of vision too. So he kind of, if you look at a bottle, it looks like, an iTunes podcast player. So there's a play button, there's the show notes. And so I kind of came up with the episode, and then I think you might have came up with the show notes. I can't remember, but we just wanted to play off the podcast as much as possible, because you can do that with single barrels because they're all unique and they're all individual and they have their own different things that we like about them. So I thought it made sense.
Well, we also stand on the shoulders of giants at the end of the day, right? I mean, we look at, a lot of this inspiration came from the brands that we already like and we cherish. I mean, when we look at what you can do from Willett Family Estate, what you get with Old Forester Birthday Bourbon, when you look at that, we took a lot of those cues and put them into there. With Willett Family Estate having a single barrel offering and knowing that like when that bottle's gone, that's it. When people are out there and they're like, I've got to have barrel C9D, like I got to have it. And then, if that translates to the same thing as somebody says like, oh, I need episode 5 from, Pursuit series, whatever it is, they kind of translate that. And we try to be as transparent as we can on the label. Like that's one thing that we come from a whiskey background is like, as much as we can put out there from, the proof, the age, everything, like we want to make sure everything is age dated as much as possible. Not only that is, if we can divulge the distillery, we will. We do that again with some of the craft, some of the craft offerings that we do.
Yeah, and with our labels are a pain in the ass, and they're the most inefficient thing ever. And it's my fault because of the episode. And also, I did steal from Birthday Bourbon. When I was looking at bottles on the shelf, I thought I liked how Birthday Bourbon had a different color of each one. And so when you look at a shelf and you look at the different colors, you can say, oh, I have that particular year or particular. So I wanted that each episode to have their own color. So you look, when you have them lined up, you're like, which episode you have.
Yeah. So both of you have been a part of the narrative of trying to get whiskey distillers to be more transparent. Now that you're on the other side a little bit, do you understand? Do you have a little bit more appreciation for those distillers who may not be as transparent as they should be?
Well, I can see in some instances, yes, I can see it because they've worked hard to build that brand recognition, build that they've spent a lot of money to trademark, and protect that name. So I can understand that they don't want somebody piggybacking off that and kind of.
In particular, like we're talking about someone who may source their whiskey out or sell it out, like Barton Wood or Dickel. Or even in some circumstances, once upon a time, Brown-Forman or Four Roses.
Or Heaven Hill sourced a lot too.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they don't. And there, at a time, there were so many people source, and they still are, but there's so many different brands sourcing. So I could see it, just being confusing. And but at the same time too, it's like it also helps them because it's like, how many like Luxro. The Ezra Brooks 7 or that it's Heaven Hill juice and you're like, damn, that's good. It just elevates the Heaven Hill brand even more in my opinion. But
what I find fascinating is when one of them win an award, they're like, well, whose whiskey that really is. I was like, yeah, I know it's Brown-Forman. Why don't you let the world know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that we try to do is we try to take a lot of the things that the whiskey geek would find appreciative, right? And we try to divulge as much information as we can. And at the same exact time, I think that we've had a lot of good success and a lot of good feedback on the show notes portion as well. Mm-hmm. Because if there's somebody that says, I don't feel like taking a risk and a gamble on a $75 or $115 bottle, like I don't want to do that. Well, what we do is we try to put our show notes, like we try to find a prominent flavor or a little spin on it that is a way that you can kind of get an indication of like, this is the flavors that we are getting inside this bottle, right? Mm-hmm. So you have a little bit of a better estimation of what you're getting yourself into, that you're just not blindly throwing money at it as well.
I want to take it back to like the starting of the brand. I want to ask both of you this question. What was the most annoying thing at the very beginning about starting a brand?
The government, like paperwork. The paperwork is so annoying and so slow and so cumbersome. They really like, they want you to quit. Like they don't want you, because the amount of paperwork and the waiting and all the stuff you have to fill out, the trademarks, all this stuff. It's a lot of legwork and upfront costs just to even like get a label approved. And that was the most annoying for me.
Well, no, I agree with you, because even going and navigating the process of figuring out like, okay, like what kind of license can we get? Like, we can't get a DSP because we don't own a distillery, we don't own a warehouse, we don't own these things. What kind of license do you get? And you look around, you're like, well, I know this company X and this company Y, like they don't own a distillery. Like, how are they doing this? So there's this whole world that these even navigate to figure out like, oh, that's what it ended up being. We had to get our wholesaler's license. And then we got our wholesaler's license. And then we're like, okay, well, let's go ahead and we'll start navigating this path. And then even trying to, like, we haven't released anything from MGP and we haven't bought anything from MGP, but we said, there's some good stuff from MGP. Like, let's go ahead and get samples. And we talked to them and they're like, hey, okay, we need your DSP. We're like, we don't have a DSP. Here's a wholesaler's license. They're like, what the hell's a wholesaler's license? So it's like, there's this whole world that is just like, it's so confusing that's underneath the covers that.
And even the people they're like, we don't even know what you need sometimes. Like you file with the Kentucky ABC and they're like, we don't even know what you need. Like, let me try to get to my supervisor. We'll call you back in like 4 months.
It's a true story. Maybe not 4 months, but it was at least a few weeks when, we tried to get registered with the state of Kentucky when we were trying to at least open up distribution in the state. And it was kind of like, well, what papers do you need? Well, I don't know. What do you have? Right. So
and then like you're buying, and then you're buying whiskey and trying to do transfer bonds. The government's on shutdown, and you can't. So then they're not doing anything, and then they have a backlog, so it takes even longer. And you're like, I own several businesses, and it's like I like to move at a fast pace. I like to get things done, and Kenny's the same way in tech. And it's like when you try to do anything, is you have to plan at least 8 months in advance because it just takes that much in paperwork. Shipping, distribution, all this stuff, it's so slow.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, our first bottles we were supposed to release of November of 2018, right?
No, they were supposed to be in September, and they didn't release till what? December.
Yeah.
Late December. Yeah.
All right, so you guys, it takes a little while to get some approvals, but you get it. You get your look of the bottle and everything ready to go, and then you get your first release out. And it's a pretty successful release. It's sold out quickly, correct?
Yeah, within a day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
who. I mean, what new brand can say they sold out their first release in a day?
Well, to be fair, it's a single barrel, so it's only 150 bottles. You know, but
own that shit, man. You guys sold out in a
it
day.
was surreal. I thought it'd be quick, but not that quick. And so it was very cool. But with that, it was new to us and new with our distributor, Sealbox. They were just kind of up and running. And so there were a lot of just road bumps from both ends. Like we didn't know how to do customer service, or some shippings didn't get, correct, not their fault. Just things happen, when you're shipping things, and you're like, from now on, we got to hold back so many bottles so we can make sure we can cover, all the,
Anything's happened
because we literally needed to sell out everything to like recoup our money. Like, so we didn't, keep a bunch of bottles, so we were just like, we need to sell it. And so we definitely learned that aspect. We need to hold back some to, fix any errors.
I mean, on that note, big shout out to Blake.
Yeah. I didn't mean, I wasn't trying to talk negative.
No, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, this is only successful because of him so far, right? I mean,
yeah, Blake's been a great partner.
It was one of those things when I remember being there at our broker, and we had to take a break because there's another person there doing a barrel pick, and we're in the break room, and I'm on the phone with Blake because Blake was just getting Sealbox off the ground, just like kind of like an idea. And I said, like, all right, man, you got to tell me how this works, because we have a national audience. We're not going to sit there and try to cover the entire US and try to get distribution in all these different states. Like, tell me how it works, right? And so that has been instrumental in being able to get this in the hands of our followers and listeners across the nation. And this is kind of why we are also a big supporter of breaking down the Commerce Clause and the opening up shipping between states and everything like that. And we've seen the power of what not having a distributor can actually give you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what we've ultimately found at the end of the day.
So one of the things that how it's being operated is a threat to the 3-tier system, and there's so much money behind that, and there's so many people out there trying to defend it right now. Do you ever get nervous that this model might come crashing down at any minute?
Well, I mean, we branched out.
Yeah, we've branched out because of that. There was a time last year, in the summer, I kind of was like, all right, we need to kind of diversify how we're going to get this into people's hands. And so we looked at our biggest states and where we have the most listeners, or who have followers, who's purchased things from us. And so I was like, all right, let's look at those states. So it was Kentucky, Texas, Georgia. And so I was like, we need to get some traditional distribution set up in those states, because we want to be able to get, just in case something, we want to be able to get the product to where we have the most fans.
Well, you have that's twofold, right? I mean, you have one where you have stores that want their own exclusive single barrels, like they want to be able to have that for their customers. And then second, you can't get away from the eyes that you get, just eyeballs, right? I mean, when somebody just goes into a liquor store and they start looking and what's on the shelf, what's behind the glass case, blah, 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 blah. It's a lot easier to get eyeballs in your brand doing that than it is to say, hey, go visit this website.
Yeah.
Right.
I was amazed. Like when our audience is fine, but when you try to, like, we did a friends and family barrel where we were like selling just to our friends and family to say thank you for the support, and a lot of my family members they're like, what do you mean I can't go get on the shelf? Like, I can't go to Liquor Barn again? I was like, no, you got to go to this website and like order. And they're like, that sounds like too much work. I was like, really? You do Amazon every day? Like,
well, I was going to say, in Bart, didn't they just get internet, or?
We got dial up now, It takes a bit. But
you got mail.
But even just like everyday consumer, people that are whiskey geeks, like you tell them, they're like, where can I go get on the shelves? There's still this mindset of, in which I like it too. I like going to the store, talking to people, seeing it on the shelf and seeing what it looks like holding it. And so there's definitely that you kind of have to like change people's mindset that you can get online, order it, and it'll show up.
Yeah.
Because there is something about the experience of going to the store.
And having that built-in audience too. You want to be able to supply, meet the demand this audience, this podcast audience. And how have you all been able to do that aside from Silbox?
So, I mean, Sealbox is it's the main driver, right? I mean, going online was the main driver, and that's only because that is the best mechanism to get it in the most hands across the U.S.
We can't get into everybody's hands because of certain states, but that's why we set up traditional distribution.
Yeah, I mean,
in those states,
and that was one of those things. I think Ryan had that light bulb moment when he had to actually go to Texas for an event, and he realized Houston alone has more population than the entire state of Kentucky.
And I was in Dallas, but yeah, Dallas has like 7 million people. Houston has like 11. You're like, Kentucky has like 3 or 4 million people. You know, there's a ton of people here.
There's more barrels of bourbon here than people, as we like to say. So
exactly,
we're a small state.
But yeah, that's one of the main drivers when we look at population. That's one of the things when now we start connecting those dots. When we start talking and you start hearing about other distilleries, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, this brand is not going to launch in Kentucky," and people are like, "Oh, boo, you're not going to launch in your own backyard," and it's like, no,
understand why?
Like there's like 20 million people over here in this other state that are going to want this product, right? So
has launching this brand like help you understand the distillers a little bit more?
Totally.
Yeah, I think we have a lot more empathy for them.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's.
So then when Ryan goes off on one of his
well, it also too, I know what it takes, so I can pinpoint their bullshit. so when they say something and I know it's not true, I can call them out on it. Yeah, so I know the process.
We can't do a single barrel proof because we have to submit every single one to the TTV.
You're like, nope.
No, you don't.
No, you can't. You're like, yes, no, you can't. Don't talk to me.
Love it. Now let's take a look at. I'm gonna grab this bottle here, and I want to know how much time and effort went into every piece of the bottle.
What do you get if you mix Seattle craft, Texas heritage, and Scottish know-how? That's 2 Bar Spirits. 2 Bar Spirits traces its roots to a ranch in rural Texas run by the founder, Nathan Kaiser's family for 6 generations. Nathan grew up on the ranch with stories of relatives bootlegging moonshine. And after moving into Seattle, he wanted to keep the family tradition alive, and he opened 2 Bar Spirits in 2012. They're a very traditional distillery, making everything from scratch, and each day starts by milling 1,000 pounds of grain. Their entire product lineup consists of only 2 whiskeys, their moonshine and the only bourbon made in Seattle. Both bottles are being featured in Rack House Whiskey Club's next box. Rack House Whiskey Club is a Whiskey of the Month club, and they're on a mission to uncover the best flavors and stories that craft distilleries across the U.S. have to offer. Rack House ships out 2 of the featured distillery's finest bottles, along with some cool merchandise in a box delivered to your door every 2 months. Go to rackhousewhiskeyclub.com to check it out and try some 2 Bar for yourself. Use code PURSUIT for $25 off your first box.
I want to know how much time and effort went into every piece of the bottle, because this is, you can have all the marketing you want in the world, but the bottle, the packaging, the design, that is, that's the story of every bottle. So how long did it take you all to come up with a cork?
Yeah, well, I think we should start with the glass first.
Yeah,
there we go.
Because
we'll start with the glass.
Because I think that's an interesting story that not a lot of people really know about, is that when people want to go into glass manufacturing, you say like, I want a custom glass. I want my glass to look different than everybody else's on the market. Mm-hmm. Your mold, just the mold alone, starts probably around like $40,000 to $50,000, right? Yeah. And then from there, you actually start getting into the actual cost for the production run, right? That's not going to happen, right? It's not going to happen on our budget. And so you look at stuff that's off the shelf. And there's plenty of different suppliers out there, from Berlin Packaging, Imperial Packaging, and there's all kinds of people that can source these types of glass for you. And so for us, we sat down here in the basement and with our bottle designer from Relay Design, and we really looked at all the bottles on the back bar. We sat here for probably a solid 15 minutes. And really,
when you do that, you realize how many brands use the same bottle.
If you don't look at the label and you just look at the bottle itself, you see like that wine bottle shape is everywhere, and that wine bottle shape is
the cheapest dirt glass you can get out there.
It's like 60 cents or 80 cents a bottle. It's stupid cheap, right? Yeah. And so when you look at that and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to be another wine bottle out there. And it's not uncommon. People look at it and they're like, wow, your bottle looks awfully familiar to Parker's Heritage, right? And that was one of the things. I mean, our bottle designer, he picked up the Parker's Heritage bottle and he goes, I love this design. I'm
Because
like,
it sticks out. Like you look at all those, and it's the one that when you're scanning a bar, you stop because it's so different from everything else. It's not a squat bottle. It's not the wine tall one. So it's it's unique in that sense.
and then that began the 3-week course of finding that fucking bottle, right? because it was one that only a few people had access to it. This one, and by the way, I should also mention that ours is not the same exact bottle as Parker's. It is different. Ours comes from a different mold. Parker's it has its own mold.
Yep, and it comes etched already and all that stuff.
Exactly. And so finding this one was hard because our bottles are actually imported from France. I can go ahead and fast forward. We might be running into some supply chain issues here coming the later part of the year, but that's for another
we had no
story.
idea we would be this far along in the process. So.
But, like I said, finding the bottle was one part. And then the second part from it, after you found the bottle shape, was actually figuring out what does the design look like. Brian from Relay gave us started off with 6 or 7 different designs, completely different than what you see here. There were some that were clear. There were some that were etched. There were some that actually had like design on the back of the sticker that you could see through the glass. Like he had all kinds of crazy ideas. But we ended up leaning with one that had more of a play on the podcast that didn't feel like it was just a very because some of them felt like it was almost like too high class, like hoity-toity kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what I did not want. I want it to be fun, playful, bright. That's what the podcast is. It's not. I mean, we're serious about what we do, but we
don't bring
fun.
a counterfeiter on it.
Right, exactly. Yep.
We'll never let that one
comes
die.
back to that.
So, okay, so what you're telling me here is that you may have put more time and effort into
Gosh, I remember me and Kenny would have email exchanges. Like, I think that we agree on a lot of stuff, but I think that's the one thing where we really kind of went back and forth on what do we want this to look like, and it took a while to really get it to where it is.
And not only that, once you actually figure out the design's done, then becomes the actual manufacturing process that people don't understand. This is also another thing. Like, go to your home bar and start looking at the labels, and then look at all the intricate details. Like, where do you see gold foil? Where do you see copper foil?
I had no idea there was foil.
Where do you see embossing? And where do you see all these different pieces? Like, when you rub your thumb over something, like, how does it feel? Like, those are the things that not a lot of people probably don't pay attention to. But at the end of the day, when we were really looking at it, we're like, holy crap. Like, we didn't really understand how much really attention goes into some of these labels that you just don't think of.
Yeah.
And so,
so you guys do you feel like that you put more work into the creation of the bottle than you did selecting the whiskey?
Oh, at first, yeah, because
I think it was half and half, but
but I mean,
we had experience picking barrels. So
our designer really kind of pushed into our brains that you need to, rightfully so, think long term with this, because it's very expensive to change. And so because you're buying presses that cost $500 to $600 a piece just for one part of the label. We have 3 different presses, I think, that you have to buy, and they may even be more expensive than that. I can't even remember, but it's very expensive to change even subtle details. So you have to think even long term, all right, what's this going to look like in 10 years or 5 years? How easy it's to change, how much it's going to cost to change. And so it was just very well thought out, and it had to be. And our designer kind of gave us that mindset, which I appreciate.
So one of the brands that is new to the market and gets a lot of criticism for its price point is Peerless, and they went through an exhaustive amount of research and effort to create that bottle, which is one of the reasons why it's so expensive. How do you, now that you are in the position you are, do you have a little bit more respect for something like Peerless because of that effort and design into the bottle being passed forward into the cost of the final product?
I think it's a little bit different. I think what Peerless has done, I mean, they've won awards for bottle design, right? They're also winning awards for their whiskey, but they've won awards for bottle design. I don't think that was really our intention when we started, right?
No. I mean, we had lofty ambitions when we were like, we're going to put a box and do all, because my uncle owns the place that makes the boxes for Booker's and Knob Creek. So I was like, we need to put it in a box. It's going to have a tube or something. And then you realize how expensive things are when you're doing all these runs, and you're like, okay, we need to get the cost down. And it totally, like you said, dictates the price what it ends up in the consumer's hands.
Yeah.
And so,
and especially coming from a source market, like it's almost impossible to, at least in day and age, unless you're buying thousands of barrels, to get a source product under $50. It's impossible. And making sure that your packaging looks good, but is also cost effective is really where we try to be at, right? We didn't want to be in the 60 or 80 cent wine bottle shape. We're in the $2.50 or $2.75 this kind of Parker shape, right? We felt like we'll pay the extra $1.50 or whatever it is to be able to get us to that point. So there was those decisions that we kind of went down along the path that said, like, where can we make the bottle look upscale without completely blowing out of the water, right? I mean, I know that when we talk about Peerless, like, I think what, $20 of the bottle is, or $20 of that whole the whole product is into the packaging. That's a lot of money, right?
How much is every bottle?
I would say into ours, we've got somewhere, I would say less than around $5, maybe.
$5 a bottle. Okay.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
And why did you all go with, because a lot of people, what they'll do is that they'll cut money on the cork or the closure. You guys looks like you guys use one of the higher grades of cork here.
Well, actually, it was funny going into that. So we started off, and that was the battle that I fought on. I fought on that hill, and I said, guys, I want a natural cork.
Yeah.
And not only that is, I said, okay, by the way, also when you're looking at tops, there are so many damn tops out there. And so I said, like, okay, well, we need to find a black top. We like wood, natural wood. And what does this fit? Does this fit well with the packaging? We finally found one. We found somebody that had these antique blackwood tops that had natural cork in stock, 3,000 units, done. Buy them, right? We'll take them.
And they fit the they fit the opening, no problem.
Yeah, and you got that's a whole other thing. You got to go and try to find the whole fittings for it. Then anyway, then you start going on this path, and then you realize, like, oh my God, we've run through 3,000 corks, right? We need more corks. And then they're like, well, we had those in stock. They're not in stock anymore. If you want to get the antique black wood with natural cork, it's going to take around 12 to 16 weeks. We're like, oh, no. Like,
we need them in like 4 weeks.
We're like, no, you got to be kidding me. And they were like, but we have these synthetic ones available. And I was like, all right, well, let me pull the audience. And that's one of the greatest things that we have about having the Patreon community is I put a poll out there and I said, like, do you all care if something's synthetic or if it's natural? And it was about 60-40. Most people just didn't care. The people that actually didn't care or actually wanted synthetic had really good reasons of not wanting natural cork. And the most people that wanted natural cork was mostly just aesthetic, right? That was the only driver. And so I said, all right, well, let's go ahead and let's make the change. We'll move to synthetic because, there's various reasons from,
When did you guys make the change of that? Because I didn't notice that.
It had to have been, I think, episode 11-ish, I think is when we had to make that change. And then we started going down that path and we're like, okay, well, we need to order more. Let's go custom, right? And so that's when we actually started looking at putting in our custom logo on top of the cork as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you see that.
So you guys come out with this, it is a really beautiful bottle. You guys did a great job, and you've done a really good job of selecting good whiskey. One of your whiskeys was a finalist for me for my American Whiskey of the Year this year. I thought you guys really brought it.
I gave that bottle as a gift. It wasn't for any reviews. Well, it was just like, Fred, I'd love you to have a bottle. And then lo and behold, I was like, well, if I knew it was going to be a review, I would have given you this.
Well, something, Tennessee is actually... You guys were in the best Tennessee category, and Tennessee is not a really, you have Jack and you have George Dickel, and then you have a bunch of people sourcing from there. But I think actually, other than you guys and one or two others, I feel like everybody else picks really bad barrels from Tennessee. And I don't know what it is, but the barrels of whiskey that are available on the source market are just, some of them are just awful. Are you guys, when you're in that tasting process?
We've tasted through them. We reject them.
Why the hell is there so much variance from that supplier?
When like Kenny said, and they rolled 30 to 60, and we reject 80 tonight because it has those,
overly mineral.
overly mineral vitamin Flintstone, people say, and it's so pronounced and so like astringent, you can't get past it. And but
where that note comes
exactly,
from, right?
yeah, it's from the enzymes.
Yeah, from the enzymes used in fermentation.
And so what we do is I think because of it's an 80% corn product, maybe even higher. I should probably know that exact, but it has the ones you find have so much like sweetness and like dessert flavors in them. And then also if you get them higher aged, the oak balances them out well. There's some like a really good Tennessee barrel like stands out so much versus, all the Kentucky barrels. But it has to be like a really good one. Otherwise, it's like you said, it falls flat or it's just not palatable.
Yeah, I mean, there's just been so many bad barrels come out of there, but there's also been so many brilliant ones. But,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so you guys actually, you put a lot of effort into like selecting these and putting them out there. How have you reacted to negative criticism, to bad reviews?
Well, I mean, I think anything you do is you're going to get reviews and they're going to be bad. I mean, even the podcast people have bad reviews, right? I mean, you got to put on your thick skin, and we have confidence in what we're building and what we're trying to do. And I think if we do that and we try to continue to open the minds of people, when especially when it just comes to like the Tennessee stock, and Tennessee just has a stigma to it. And we knew going into this was going to be a little bit of an uphill battle. It's an education session. We educated ourselves, right? We became believers at the end of the day because we thought that we're like, oh, hell no, we're not going to go down this path, not with Tennessee. And then we became believers.
Yeah. And I mean, and we've had access to other, Kentucky H stock, that others have bottled, and we rejected it because we thought that these single barrels from Tennessee, not just because we're trying to say, we legitimately thought that these are a much better product than some of that aged Kentucky stock that's out on the market. And so we can attest to that.
And it's less expensive.
And it's less expensive. Exactly.
It's somewhat like we pay, don't get it wrong. Like we pay a premium to actually go and select these barrels. If we just bought them outright, didn't taste into anything, we'd get a cut off. All right. But we go through.
We wouldn't be able to cherry pick like we did.
Exactly. So. But yet, but going to the Kentucky route, we don't have that option. And whatever we bought, that's what comes out. That's what gets bottled. And I think that's what, again, that's what you see from the other NDPs that are out there today. And you've got either 5.5, 6 year or 12 year stuff. You know exactly where it's coming from. We've tasted it. It just wasn't for us.
Yeah. So you guys have kind of adapted your model a little bit to go outside of this, this little Tennessee spot, and that you're going to other states and finding whiskey. What are some distilleries that you can tell us right now that you'll have product coming from?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I want to also kind of talk about the reason why we went that route as well. One of the things that we have, and I hate, it's not to sound boastful, but we have an audience. Like we have an audience. We've got people that listen.
It ain't
to this.
Bragging if it's true.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things that for us, and I kind of found it a little surreal too, that we might not be Fred Minnick, but some people actually care about what we think about when we talk about a whiskey or what we taste and all this sort of stuff. And that was never the intention when we started this podcast. Like, we're not going to be whiskey reviewers. Like, we're not going to be those people because we got Bardstown and Louisville. Like, we're just two guys. We're just here for education.
Whiskey quickies are pretty good.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And it took years. I think
it took our audience convincing us that they wanted to hear that.
That's true.
Because we were both like, we're not reviewers. I don't. That's why I came up with the thumbs up, thumbs down. So because I was like,
by the way, I was so proud of both of you with your Weller Foolproof review. It was spot on. That was so good, but everybody picked up on that flat finish.
Yeah, it does have a dry finish.
Well, I appreciate it, but again, that was one of those things that we started and we said like, again, it was the audience that pushed us and said like, we'd love to have you do more reviews, and from there we kind of realized like maybe actually people care about. Or think about what what we taste. And so that's where we said like, well, let's figure out like, how can we expand this a little bit more, and give other distillers that don't have, or that basically want to get into our audience, right? Like they want to, and I look at it as well as that we can vet it. I mean, Fred, it best as well. We all have bottles that show up on a weekly basis from craft distillers around the country, and most of them just don't cut the mustard for us. Yeah. And it's one of those things, but every once in a while you find one.
Yeah. And selfishly, to come back to it, we're whiskey geeks. We're the audience. And so for us, it's fun, like trying to find something new, because in Kentucky, everything, what's good, but it's hard to get those. So it's fun exploring and trying different things. And so I wanted, or both of us wanted, an opportunity to find something unique, something outside of Kentucky that really like shines on its own. And it's been difficult to find, but the ones we have partnered with thus far have like blown it out of the park.
Yeah, absolutely. And so back to your question about
Or
like
hit it out of the park or whatever.
Who we talking to so far. So we've already had a release from Willet, right? So that's one in Kentucky, and that's also
which they didn't need any catapult from our audience, but I grew up with Drew. Drew's a great friend with me, and he helped us out, and I'll be forever grateful for that opportunity that he gave us to work with him.
Absolutely, because it's one of the premier distilleries, and we're just fascinated to be able to work with them. And then one of the other ones that we had already released 2 episodes from this distillery already, which is Finger Lakes out of New York. Yeah. Yep. It was one that Blake put on our radar, and we tried. It was amazing. And now we can, we've bought multiple barrels for them. So looking to actually do more barrel releases.
It's funny, like, in covering this world for a decade and a half, it's like Finger Lakes. I remember them where they were just starting out and they were sitting with their distillate, and it's just so cool to see how they have grown. And now you guys are tapping into that and bringing them, because they had like no marketing, nobody knows about them, and you guys bringing them forward to the conversation is probably more attention that they've ever gotten.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we love about this opportunity. Not only just Finger Lakes, as well as Woodinville Whiskey Company, right? We're working with them as well. When we
another great whiskey.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do is we want to find some of those gems that are out there that we can expose to our audience, and when we can put it into a single barrel offering at cask strength, like this is what we've tried. Like I guarantee you're going to love this, because we're not going to put it. I just sound like a Men's Warehouse commercial, but you're
going to love the way you look. You're going to love the way it tastes.
But that's one of those things is like, we put our name, we put our stamp behind it, saying like, listen, this is something that you're going to dig. I promise. We wouldn't put it out there if it wasn't that.
Yeah.
Right. I think
we put a lot of time in, like it takes a lot to get an episode. Like we taste a lot of stuff, and we're very, very picky about it. And I'm not saying that we're special, but like these barrels are very
Ryan,
unique.
you are special.
No, definitely not.
I mean, it wouldn't be hard for us to just go and buy 10 barrels of 6-year MGP and put them in an episode and say, here you go. It wouldn't be hard to do that, but it just doesn't make it special. I feel like there's already a lot of that happening, and we want to try to find those ones that really stand out.
Do all of them sell out?
So far
they have, yeah.
And is there any thoughts about starting a batching process?
Well,
I'll let you take that one.
There is. Right now, we're not ready for it because we don't have enough stock or inventory. But we do have some partnerships that are potential partnerships that do want to make that happen to give us more buying ability to where we can actually have the stock to create our own blend or small batch or whatnot. We're just not there yet. So and we can pick out good single barrels, but blending, we've tried it and we're not good yet. So we're practicing, we're trying to refine that, but it is something we want to work on, because doing these single barrels is very expensive. And they are expensive to the end consumer. And so when you do blending and small batch, you can make it more affordable. But it has to be good. That's the thing. And right now, we're just not at that point where we're putting a good product out. And so we want to make sure we really make this well thought out, that it's a great product that people are going to enjoy at an affordable price. And we're just not there yet, but it's definitely in the works.
Would you all consider taking outside investment and growing that way?
Potentially, but it'd have to be the right partner, because, we want to keep this that we are whiskey fanboys and we want it to be a good product. We don't want to have to answer to shareholders or push something out there that we don't stand behind just to get returns immediately. And so it'd have to be a partner that is on the same page as us and has the same goal as us. And so that's, I would be open to it, but right now I love our process. We work great together. I think we have great synergy, and collaboration
There's
on
the buzzword.
yeah, synergy. Exactly. But
I was thinking he was going to say chemistry.
Yeah.
chemistry, yeah,
Yeah.
You know, when I think about taking outside investment, right now we're in a good position where we don't need to. The only reason we would need to is if for some reason the brand just exploded and we needed to buy tons and tons of stock to be able to get across the nation. We don't anticipate that happening. We're boutique enough. We don't really, like I said, maybe not even want to see that happen. But at the same exact time, even the other reason that we would try to do it is to get our price point down. We understand that we're a little bit more in price than what you can get out there.
$75?
75 to 115, depending on what you're getting, right? Plus shipping. But at the end of the day, if you're going to knock that down $5 or $10, is it really worth it?
right.
So-
We're not ready to make compromises. When you scale, you have to compromise. You always do. People say you don't, but you do. And and right now we just don't want to compromise because we're still, I mean, yes, we've had success, but let's be real. We've only sold 18 barrels. And I mean,
That's peanuts.
that's peanuts. And the brands do this. This is like a third of a major release or a limited release, it's
You still haven't had enough barrels to make a batch of larceny.
right. Exactly. I mean, it's so, I mean, I'm enjoying what we're doing now. We're having fun with it. I want to continue to partner with the craft distilleries that are, have really good, because that's really enjoyable. Like Kenny and I just at the time of this recording, we just got back from Seattle with doing Woodinville, and that was so much fun, and they were excited that we were there. We were excited to be there. And it's just, it's fun doing those.
They won my best non-Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah. Thanks to Kenny. He snuck it in there.
He snuck it in. He snuck it in. And then I got another bottle. So it was my bottle, not yours, that was in the competition. And it did really well. But okay, so at this stage, what a lot of people do is like they're sourcing and all that, and they start kind of planning out, and they've got these 5 and 15-year projections, so they start doing contract distilling. Are you all doing any contract distilling, or are there any plans for contract distilling?
Yes.
We are.
I don't know if we can name names yet, but
Yeah, we can't officially name names, but yes, we do have some new make solidified with one distiller, and we're in the process of another.
Is that distiller in Kentucky?
It is, yes.
Is that distiller in Bardstown?
Maybe.
next one. So, but I mean,
Did you grow up with that distiller?
There's only 10,000 people in bars, so I grew up with everyone.
But you look at this as when you start the sourcing game, it's expensive, and you don't really own your destiny, right?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
That's the problem, and we're kind of hitting that now. It's like there's so much aged stock out there, and it's being depleted because people want high age stuff. So it's hard to find.
So that's what I said. Is we're trying, basically this business venture isn't going to be in the green for a while. Like we're going to keep dumping every dollar we make out of it.
You mean the black?
Well, in the black, making
Black or
money,
red, yeah.
whatever it is. See, that's
Green is
Yeah.
like,
I don't even know what green is.
I don't know.
in
I don't
accounting.
think green is an accounting term.
well, you look at an Excel spreadsheet, if it's positive, it's green. So.
Okay, there you go. On Google Docs,
There you
Fred doesn't
go.
know those.
But anyway, I mean, every dollar we are making, we dump back into actually whether we're buying other barrels or we are putting into new make or new contracts or something like that. We're trying to figure out how we can again
Yeah,
make something more long term.
we want to have this is probably like bad from a long-term sense, but we want the most like diverse. We want a diverse inventory that we can work with, and that probably doesn't make sense, but we just want something. We want to make this unique and different from other brands out there.
It is, and I'll say the thing that makes it unique is the podcast. But and you guys know, I mean, I work with you, but when we do a show together, I always forget when we're in the middle of a show, and you may bring it up in conversation or something, but I always forget. I was like, oh yeah, they own a brand. It never comes across like you're peddling the product on the show. So how do you do that? Like how do you not oversaturate the promotion of Pursuit series?
That's why I was nervous about doing this podcast, because it was kind of like, it just felt like too self-serving.
Yeah.
Didn't you're the one that kind of pushed us, said like, I want to interview you guys about this.
I really, the reason, because, so many of us, like in the wine world, when a wine critic or a wine writer starts a brand, his career is over. Like, you can't do that. And like, I'm always think I'm a writer, and so it's how I think of conflicts of interest. And it's like, you guys have been able to carry this without seemingly have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I mean, I said, mostly for us, it was about our audience, and that's really what we cared about, especially the Patreon people, right? I mean, like that's what funds, that's what grows this. And the idea in the very beginning was that we can give them offerings to more single barrels than we ever could before. Like, we don't have to worry about allocation of what we can get from Buffalo Trace or from Barton or from Four Roses or Wild Turkey. Like, we can go select stuff, and we can put it on our label, and we can have fun with it.
Yeah. And we didn't, that's just our background. We're not like, I don't know, even with the podcast, we've never been pushy or like wanting to sell. It's just, this is fun for us. And so if somebody wants to go along the ride with us, we're happy to have you. It's not like we have to make this successful and have to, push this brand on you to just get money. It's something we enjoy doing, and we're so grateful for the opportunity, but I never want it to be like something that, just put down people's throat, just bother them with it.
All right. And as one thing that you'd always say, you're like, when are you guys going to quit your real jobs and start working bourbon full time? Like,
it feels like I have 2 full-time jobs now.
But this could be one of those stepping stones that could potentially get us there, right? I mean, there's only so much money you can make in in a podcasting realm, and there's only so much money you can make in a boutique bourbon brand. But maybe together they could grow to something one day. And so, like I said, that's one of the things. If we want to think about the retirement plan, maybe that's what it could be.
Yeah. I had a couple. I'm going to go down to some rapid fire questions, to have some fun.
Okay.
And you both answer separately.
Okay.
Your favorite series.
Episode 5.
Why?
So it had this buttery note to it that was just something that we just haven't been able to find anywhere else, where it was just this creamy mouthfeel. Not really creamy, but like I said, this kind of like buttery mouthfeel is, you say it a lot, where it says like, it hits the back of your jaws and just kind of rolls over. And that was one of those things that kind of hit it for me. Second one was episode 2, because Ryan knows that I'm a sucker for oak bombs and tannins, and that was it.
2's probably my least favorite one, because it's an oak tannic bomb. But if you like that, it's right in your wheelhouse. For me, 5's really good. It's probably number 3. I'd say 9 is my favorite, because it has like this like croissant donuts. Like it reminds me of a bakery, and I call it like the Bourbon Bakery or something. It reminds me of going to Plains here in Louisville and getting a Yum Yum or something. Like, it just has like that syrupy, doughy, sugary kind of flavor. And then probably my second favorite is the episode, is it 18, the Mackenzie Rye? This rye is so unique. We don't have it here today, but it's so unique, so fruity. It's great. I don't know. I'm obsessed with it.
A New York rye. That's ooh.
Yeah.
Empire Rye.
Empire Rye.
Getting back to the old days.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could pick from any distillery in the world. You don't have to worry about the businesses of getting in. What distillery would you like to most slap in a Pursuit Series bottle?
Oh, man. You want to go first? You want me to go?
If I think about something that...
Essentially, I'm asking you, what is your favorite distillery?
Yeah, well, lack of a better
term. The thing is, we have several that we are working with. So,
well, I mean,
but we can't name.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is, if you look at what's out there, and I think of like a product that isn't available in the shape or form that we're building, I would like to look at something more from probably like a Sazerac brand. Like I love a lot. I mean, there's so much good stuff that's coming out of Buffalo Trace. I mean, just fantastic whiskey. And when we look,
so you would pick a Buffalo Trace to put in there.
I probably would.
Yeah, he's a stag like Homer.
Yeah, I kind of am. And could you imagine if they open up a Stag Junior barrel program or anything like that?
It's funny when we first started this. So I was like, all right, I'm going to convince all these distillers that we're going to do an episode related back to the podcast. You know, like we had Harlan Wheatley on and Chris Morse. I was like, you all should sell us your whiskey and we can put it in a bottle and say it's, and then they're like, nope, nope. Shut down real fast.
Funny story, right?
Yeah. But for me, probably, I don't know. I think Wild Turkey or Russell's would, you know, doing that would be pretty cool. Because that's one of my favorite barrel picks that we do is the Russell's products. Or, I mean, I don't know. Any Kentucky distillery is always fun. But
Okay, so Bourbon Pursuit and Pursuit Series are two different ventures. They're two different businesses operated separately. You have to pick one to do for the rest of your life. Bourbon Pursuit or Pursuit Series.
I don't think Pursuit Series lives without Bourbon Pursuit. So that's where I think, you know, one can't happen without the other. So I'd probably have to say, you know, stick with Bourbon Pursuit, even though that Pursuit Series is going to have, to put it this way, Pursuit Series, if all of a sudden this ends tomorrow, at least Ryan and I, we've bought barrels that we're going to have enough whiskey that we can drink for the rest of our lives that are sitting in stock, which is great. But Pursuit Series doesn't live without Bourbon Pursuit.
I'll let Kenny keep Bourbon Pursuit. I will exit and keep Pursuit Series going.
There you go.
So, no, but it's the same thing. They both have to have each other. So that, I mean, Pursuit Series, I love the podcast. Pursuit Series, though, is like, it really, like, I don't know, it's deep in my soul. Like, I love it. It's like one of the things that keeps me up at night, keeps me excited. I don't know. But Bourbon Pursuit does too. So it's hard, but if I had to pick, probably Pursuit Series because Kenny's going to run Bourbon Pursuit with you.
Good deal.
Okay, so you could buy as much Kentucky bourbon from this Kentucky distillery as you'd like. You could go in there and you could select the barrels. Would you do it? OZ Tyler.
Well, I think right now, here's the thing is that OZ Tyler has contracts out there. Like there's people there that
Correct.
you can go and you can buy the contracts. You can do that. There's a lot of people out there. I think they have up to 3-year-old product already now that you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's still TBD on what it's going to taste like. It can't hurt to own a handful of barrels and see what it's going to be like. But you know, it's one of those things that the source game is always a gamble. I mean, it's just even starting a distillery, it's always a gamble. You don't know what the end product's going to be like.
Yeah, their master distiller is actually very talented. And I met with him, or we did a podcast with him. I don't know, it's a long
Jacob?
time. Jacob. He's
Jacob
I
Call.
mean, and I tasted some of his new make, and it was great, but it was new make, so you just never know what it's going to turn out to. But
Right.
like Kenny said, TBD. But it is nice having, for whatever reason, it's nice having that KY on there because it's a stigma thing. It's like you see KY and it's
Pulls a premium.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works.
And they, when they're making whiskey, you go in and crack in those barrels, who's to say that they don't have a honey barrel in there, right?
That's true. It can always happen.
So
I'm sure they're going to have good. I mean, I'm sure that it's going to be good. It's just let the time develop.
so that's a yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably will. There's good as long as it's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question. It's your big marketing spend for the year. Where are you spending your money?
One thing that we've tried to figure out is how do we actually market this more? And that's been tough. I think it's been tough. We've played around with Facebook advertisements, played around with that. I mean, I don't think we're going to go buy billboards anytime soon either.
No.
So our marketing budget's actually pretty tight because we throw everything back into the whiskey. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of
So I guess my point is like you have, all right, let's say I give you $10,000 for marketing. Where and how are you spending it?
I would buy good whiskey. Well, seriously though, I think that's you can market stuff, and I understand, but we freaked out about the packaging and all this stuff. But when when Kenny and I was like, do you ever really look at it? You just, when you taste it, you know that it's good. And I think if we continue investing, I would invest it in the whiskey, because if you have a good product, people are going to come back no matter what it's in.
Yeah, I mean, and we're light marketers at the end of the day of what we're doing. I mean, we're talking about it here. This is the most we've ever marketed this product, is this podcast right here. We've talked about it, a few times on the podcast opening. We give people notifications through social media and stuff like that. But we haven't done anything to like do a land grab across the U.S. of like, how do we put the Name Pursuit series in every whiskey drinker's head across the United States? Honestly, that's something that we've never really thought of before.
So therein is why you have the hearts of the whiskey geeks, because we all hate marketing, right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Your answers were like, put it back into the whiskey, and that's to be applauded. And I'm excited to see where things are going for you all. And this is a great endeavor. I'm excited that you guys are already contract distilling and thinking ahead of the future. So I think we're going to have another episode of the Bourbon Pursuit where I turn the tables on you two, and we just talk about where things are going. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's
on
nice
this
not having to think of
episode.
questions. You just answer. It's
fun being on this end.
It's
sometimes.
refreshing.
Yeah, you both were pretty good.
But it's fun feeling refreshing me on this side and actually being knowledgeable of what you're talking about,
Right.
And not just guessing.
Exactly.
Yeah, you guys were great. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Bourbon Pursuit. If you'd like, go check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Search Bourbon Pursuit. And while you're at it, become a Patreon member. Support the community and learn more about the Pursuit series. And most importantly, go to the ratings or whatever however you listen to this podcast. Give us a rating, a thumbs up. The algorithms, it matters. So that's this week's Bourbon Pursuit. Until next week.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.